Ah, such are the lures of the toilet that none will for long hold aloof from them. Cosmetics are not going to be a mere prosaic remedy for age or plainness, but all ladies and all young girls will come to love them. Does not a certain blithe marquise, whose lettres intimes from the court of Louis XVI are less read than their wit deserves, tell us how she was scandalized to see "Même les tout jeunes demoiselles émaillées comme ma tabatière"? So it shall be with us. Surely the common prejudice against painting the lily can but be based on mere ground of economy. That which is already fair is complete, it may be urged implausibly, for there are not so many lovely things in this world that we can afford not to know each of them by heart. There is only one white lily, and who that has ever seen, as I have, a lily really well painted, could grudge the artist so fair a ground for his skill? Scarcely do you believe through how many nice metamorphoses a lily may be passed by him. In like manner, we all know the young girl with her simpleness, her goodness, her wayward ignorance, and a very charming ideal for England must she have been, and a very natural one, when a young girl sat even on the throne. But no nation can keep its ideal forever, and it needed none of Mr. Gilbert's delicate satire in Utopia to remind us that she had passed out of our ken with the rest of the early Victorian era. What writer of plays, as lately asked some pressmen, who had been told off to attend many first nights and knew what he was talking about, ever dreams of making the young girl the center of his theme? Rather, he seeks inspiration from the tried and tired woman of the world in all her intricate maturity, whilst, by way of comic relief, sends a young girl flitting in and out with a tennis racket, the poor of her former self. The season of the unsophisticated is gone by, and the young girl's final extinction beneath the rising tides of cosmetics will leave no gap in life and will rob art of nothing. Tush, I can hear some damned flutter-pate exclaim, girlishness and innocence are as strong and as permanent as womanhood itself. Why, a few months past, the whole town went mad over Miss Cissy Loftus. Was not hers the success of girlish innocence and the absence of rouge? If such things as these be outmoded, why was she so wildly popular? Indeed, the triumph of that clever girl, whose debut made London nice even in August, is but another witness to the truth of my contention. In a very sophisticated time, simplicity has a new dulcedo. Hers was a success of contrast. Accustomed to clever malaperts like Miss Lloyd or Miss Reeve, whose experienced pouts and smiles under the sunbonnet are a standing burlesque of innocence and girlishness, Demos was really delighted, for once and away, to see the real presentment of these things upon his stage, coming after all those sly serios. Coming so young and mere with her pink frock and straightly combed hair, Miss Cissy Loftus had the charm which things of another period often do possess. Besides, just as we adored her for her abrupt nod with which she was wont at first to acknowledge the applause, so we were glad for her to come upon the stage with nothing to tinge the ivory of her cheeks. It seemed so strange, that neglect of convention, to be behind floodlights and not rouged. Yes, hers was a success of contrast. She was like a daisy in the window at Solomon's. She was delightful. And yet, such is the force of convention, that when last I saw her, playing in some burlesque at the Gaiety, her fringe was curled and her pretty face rouged with the best of them. And, if further need be to show the absurdity of having called her performance a triumph of naturalness over the jaded spirit of modernity, let us reflect that the little mimic was not a real old-fashioned girl after all. She had none of that restless naturalness that would seem to have characterized the girl of the early Victorian days. She had no pretty ways, no smiles, nor blushes, nor tremors. Possibly Demos could not have stood a presentment of girlishness unrestrained. But, with her grave insouciance, Miss Cissy Loftus had much of the reserve that is one of the factors of feminine perfection, and to most comes only, as I have said, with artifice. Her features played very, very slightly, and in truth, this may have been one of the reasons of her great success, for expression is but too often the ruin of a face, and since we cannot, as yet, so order the circumstances of life that women shall never be betrayed into an unbecoming emotion, when the brunette shall never have cause to blush, nor La Gioconda to frown, the safest way by far is to create, by brush and pigments, artificial expressions for every face. And this, say you, will make monotony. You are mistaken, todo calo mistaken. When your mistress has wearied you with one expression, then it will need but a few touches of that pencil, a backward sweep of that brush, and lo, you will be reveling in another. For though, of course, the painting of the face is, in manner, most like the painting of canvas, in outcome it is rather akin to the art of music, lasting, like music's echo, not for very long, so that, no doubt, of the many little appurtenances of the reformed toilet table, not the least vital will be a list of the emotions that become its owner, with recipes for simulating them. According to the color she wills her hair to be for the time, black or yellow or, peradventure, burnished red, she will blush for you, sneer for you, laugh or languish for you. The good combinations of line and color are nearly numberless, and by their means poor restless woman will be able to realize her moods and all their shades and lights and dappledoms, to live many lives and masquerade through many moments of joy. No monotony will be, and as for us men, matrimony will have lost its sting. But that in the world of women they will not neglect this art, so ripping in itself, in its results so wonderfully beneficent, I am sure indeed. Much, I have said, is already done for its full revival. The spirit of the age has made straight the path of its professors. Fashion has made Jezebel surrender her monopoly of the rouge pot. As yet, the great art of self-embellishment is for us but in its infancy. But if English women can bring it to the flower of an excellence so supreme as never yet has it known, then, though old England lose her martial and commercial supremacy, we patriots will have the satisfaction of knowing that she has been advanced at one bound to a place in the councils of aesthetic Europe. And, in sooth, is this hoping too high of my countrywomen? True that, as the art seems always to have appealed to the ladies of Athens, and it was not until the waning time of the Republic that Roman ladies learned to love the practice of it, so Paris, Athenian, in this as in all other things, has been noted hitherto as a far more vivid centre of the art than London. But it was in Rome, under the emperors, that unguentaria reached its zenith, and shall it not be in London soon that unguentaria shall outstrip its Roman perfection? Surely there must be among us artists as cunning in the use of brush and puff as any who lived at Versailles. Surely the splendid, impalpable advance of good taste, as shown in dress and in the decoration of houses, may justify my hope of the preeminence of English women in the cosmetic art. By their innate delicacy of touch, they will accomplish much, and much, of course, by their swift feminine perception. Yet it were well that they should know something also of the theoretical side of the craft. Modern authorities upon the mysteries of the toilet are, it is true, rather few, but among the ancients many a writer would seem to have been fascinated by them. Archigenes, a man of science at the court of Cleopatra, and Crichton at the court of the Emperor Trajan, both wrote treatises upon cosmetics, doubtless most scholarly treatises that would have given many a precious hint. It is a pity they are not extant. From Lucian or from Juvenal, with his bitter picture of a Roman levee, much may be learnt. From the staid pages of Xenophon and Aristophanes, dear farces. But best of all is that fine book of the Ars Amatoria that Ovid has set aside for the consideration of dyes, perfumes, and pomades. Written by an artist who knew the allurement of the toilet and understood its philosophy, it remains without rival as a treatise upon artifice. It is more than a poem, it is a manual, and if there be left in England any lady who cannot read Latin in the original, she will do well to procure a discreet translation. In the Bodleian Library there is treasured the only known copy of a very poignant and delightful rendering of this one book of Ovid's masterpiece. It was made by a certain Y. Waltonstall, who lived in the days of Elizabeth, and, seeing that he dedicated to it the virtuous ladies and gentlewomen of Great Britain, I am sure that the gallant writer, could he know of our great renaissance of cosmetics, would wish his little work to be placed once more within their reach. Inasmuch as to you, ladies and gentlemen, so he writes in his queer little dedication, my book of pigments doth first address itself, that it may kiss your hands, and afterward have the lines thereof in reading, sweetened by the odor of your breath, while the dead letters formed into words by your divided lips may receive new life by your passionate expression, And the words married in that ruby-colored temple may thus happily united multiply your contentment. It is rather sad to think that, at this crisis in the history of pigments, the virtuous ladies and gentlewomen cannot read the libellus of Y. Waltonstall, who did so dearly love pigments. But since the days when these great critics wrote their treatises, with what gifts innumerable has artifice been loaded by science? Many little partitions must be added to the Narthecium before it can comprehend all the new cosmetics that have been quietly devised since classical days, and will make the modern toilet chalks away more splendid in its possibilities. A pity that no one has devoted himself to the compiling of a new list. But doubtless all the newest devices are known to the Admiral Aguentarians of Bond Street, who will impart them to their clients. Our thanks, too, should be given to science for ridding us of the old danger that was latent in the use of cosmetics. Nowadays they cannot, being purged of any poisonous element, do harm to the skin that they make beautiful. There need be no more sowing the seeds of destruction in the furrows of time, no martyrs to the cause like Maria, Countess of Coventry, that fair dame but infelix, who died, so they relate, from the effect of a poisonous rouge upon her lips. No, we need have no fears now. Artifice will claim not another victim from among her worshippers. Loveliness shall sit at the toilet, watching her oval face in the oval mirror. Her smooth fingers shall flit among the paints and powder, to tip and mingle them, catch up a pencil, clasp a vial, and what not, until the mask of vermeil tinct has been laid rapidly, the enamel quite hardened. And heavens, how she will charm us and ensorcel our eyes! Positively, rouge will rob us for a time of all our reason. We shall go mad over masks. Was it not at Capua that they had a whole street where nothing was sold but dyes and unguents? We must have such a street, and, to fill our new Saplasia, our arcade of the unguents, all herbs and minerals and live creatures shall give of their substance. The white cliffs of Albion shall be ground to powder for loveliness, and perfumed by the ghost of many a little violet. The fluffy eider ducks that are swimming round the pond shall lose their feathers, that the powder puff may be moon-like as it passes over loveliness's lovely face. Even the camels shall become ministers of delight, giving many tufts of their hair to be stained in her splendid color box, and across her cheek the swift hare's foot shall fly as of old. The sea shall offer her the fucus, its scarlet weed. We shall spill the blood of mulberries at her bidding. And, as in another period of great ecstasy, a dancing wanton, La Belle Aubrey, was crowned upon a church's lighted altar, so arsenic, that green-tressed goddess, ashamed at length of skulking between the soup of the unpopular and the test-tubes of the Queen's analyst, shall be exalted to a place of consummate honor upon the toilet table of loveliness. All these things shall come to pass, times of jolliness and glad indulgence, for Artifice, whom we drove forth, has returned among us, and, though her eyes are red with crying, she is smiling forgiveness. She is kind. Let us dance and be glad, and trip the cock-a-whoop. Artifice, sweetest exile, is come into her kingdom. Let us dance her a welcome.